Hey everyone, and welcome back to today's Explainer. If you're looking to cut through all the noise and get straight to the facts, you're absolutely in the right place. Today, we're breaking down the day's most crucial current affairs. We're talking massive shifts in India's internal laws, complex global energy partnerships, and some really high-tech challenges to national security. Let's get right into it. Here is our quick roadmap for today. First up, polity and law, looking at a major Supreme Court ruling on citizenship. Second, international relations and a brand new uranium deal. Third, environment and economy, focusing on compressed biogas. And finally, internal security and our evolving border challenges. All right, diving right into Section 1, polity and law, focusing on the Supreme Court's latest guidelines on citizenship. So the Supreme Court recently made a massive move. They stepped in and actually set aside a batch of 27 separate judgments coming out of the Guwahati High Court. Now, those previous judgments had declared the appellants to be foreigners, largely just because they hadn't appeared before the tribunals. But the Supreme Court has hit the brakes on that. They've remanded all these cases back for fresh adjudication within 6 months, making it very clear that stripping someone's citizenship is a matter of grave consequence. It's not something to be taken lightly. And this quote right here really hits the nail on the head. The justices made it crystal clear. A state action which is arbitrary cannot claim the protection of law. You can't just stamp a piece of paper and take away someone's citizenship without a rigorous, completely fair process, even if that person initially failed to show up to a hearing. So what does this fair process actually look like on the ground? Well, the court laid out some strict, specific checks for the foreigners' tribunals. They must independently ensure that the person has a genuine, fair opportunity to be heard. They have to clearly disclose the main grounds for the case, make sure the evidence actually supports the claim, and ultimately arrive at a logical conclusion based strictly on the material on record. It's all about ensuring constitutional guarantees are actually met. Moving right along to Section 2, international relations, specifically the India-Australia uranium deal. Now, this didn't just happen overnight. We're talking about nearly 2 decades of intense back-and-forth negotiations. It all kicked off back in 2008 following the historic India-US civil nuclear deal. By 2009, talks really started shaping a long-term energy security dialogue, which eventually led to a nuclear cooperation agreement in 2015. But the real, tangible breakthrough, that happened just this week during Prime Minister Modi's visit to Australia, where both nations finally locked in the administrative arrangements for Australian uranium exports to India. What's absolutely fascinating here is the delicate diplomatic balancing act. You see, Australia normally only exports uranium to countries that have signed the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, or NPT, and India is famously a non-signatory. However, because India signed a super strict safeguards agreement with the IAEA back in 2008, basically guaranteeing the materials will exclusively be used for peaceful purposes, Australia has agreed to these bilateral safeguards. And this influx of uranium, it literally could not have come at a more crucial time. India's energy sector is under a lot of stress right now due to global geopolitical shocks, which is forcing some aggressive diversification. This is heavily backed by the recent Shanti Act, passed in December 2025, which officially opened the nuclear sector to private Indian entities. This new Australian uranium is exactly the fuel needed to power this massive privatized push. Let's shift gears to Section 3, Environment and Economy, focusing on India's push for compressed biogas. Before we dive into the policy, let's quickly define what compressed biogas, or CBG, actually is. Think of it as a waste-to-wealth twin of standard compressed natural gas. It's a completely renewable, carbon-neutral mix of methane and CO2 that's created from agricultural and organic waste. And the best part? Because it's chemically identical to standard CNG, we can plug it directly into our existing grid to produce electricity, heat homes, or even fuel cooking stoves. But having a great alternative fuel on paper is only half the battle. Back in 2018, the government launched the SATAT initiative with a massive, highly ambitious target, 5,000 CBG plants by 2023, backed by heavy financial grants. But that ambition has clashed pretty hard with reality. As of June 2026, only 132 facilities have actually been completed. Sources are pointing to severe infrastructure bottlenecks, low private investment, and some major hurdles in accessing formal credit. Why does this matter so much? Well, getting this right is an absolute economic necessity for India. Right now, the country imports nearly 85% of its crude oil needs. That is huge. Overcoming these hurdles in CBG production isn't just a nice environmental talking point. It's an urgent strategic requirement to cut down that massive import reliance and shield the economy from global energy price shocks. So, to force the market's hand and guarantee that there's demand, the government is bringing in mandatory blending targets. The National Biofuels Coordination Committee has mandated that gas distributors have to start blending CBG into their standard supply. It starts at 1% in financial year 26 and scales up to 5% by FY 29. They're directly mirroring the rapid success we saw with India's ethanol blending program, hoping these strict mandates will finally kick the biogas industry into high gear. Finally, we wrap up with Section 4, internal security and the incredibly complex task of securing India's land borders. So what happens when modern threats completely bypass our traditional border fences? That exact question was the focal point of the first ever Land Border District Superintendents of Police Conference. Chaired by Home Minister Amit Shah, this crucial meeting brought together 119 border district police chiefs and top intelligence directors to figure out exactly how physical barriers are being rendered obsolete in the modern age. And what they found is that traditional smuggling is basically being reinvented. Criminal syndicates operating across the Pakistan border are heavily relying on unbreakable encrypted apps like Scred and Zangi, which is completely blinding our intelligence agencies. We're also seeing a major spike in drone drops, delivering weapons and narcotics right over the border. On top of that, officials flagged the misuse of the open Nepal border, alongside unexplained demographic changes and a sudden mushrooming of religious structures in border belts. This also brings up a highly sensitive administrative challenge: tracking migration. At the conference, states like Assam pointed out that illegal migrants are somehow managing to secure identity documents and actually appear on official electoral rolls. The Assam police noted this whole situation is compounded by the fact that the special intensive revision of electoral rolls couldn't be fully wrapped up. Why? Simply because the final National Register of Citizens from 2019 still remains unpublished, leaving millions of people in this bizarre administrative limbo. So let's take a step back. Today we've unpacked 4 completely distinct, yet totally interconnected pillars of current affairs. From the Supreme Court demanding absolute constitutional fairness in citizenship tribunals to securing a vital international nuclear uranium pipeline. From the mandatory economic push into compressed biogas to the high-tech invisible arms race happening right now at our borders. How these interlocked policies in justice, energy, and border security are managed will absolutely define India's resilience on the global stage. What do you think will be the biggest hurdle? Thank you so much for joining me today. Stay curious, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.